Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. This is the September issue of the Wildlife Photography News and the Tips, Tricks, and Fixes. And when I talk about news, I'm going to talk about things that's been from software companies or the camera manufacturers that says, here's what's coming out, not what a rumor is. So basically, if there's a patent on a lens, I'm not going to talk about the patent or the rumors or what I speculate a camera is going to have that's not been released by the manufacturer or told us what is coming from the manufacturer. So we're only going to talk about news. The very first bit of news comes from Adobe, and that's Adobe Photoshop 2024. A lot of us were using Adobe Photoshop Beta to play with the generative fill and the AI. Now that has rolled up into the 2024 version, so go ahead and update your Photoshop from 2023 to 2024. You can not have to use the beta anymore. Mainly, it's really nice for doing little extensions and moving things, wider or getting more fill in areas, or even taking a branch or something out. It's a lot easier than doing cloning tools. And that's mainly what I use it for, just to move a branch here or there that I don't like, or maybe extend, like when I do the videos, everything's shot in 2.3, and I can reduce that out to 16:9 if I need to for YouTube. That's the first thing. There's nothing from Canon this month. Canon's been pretty quiet for a while. The very next thing we'll talk about Nikon. So the first thing we'll talk about is the 180 to 600 lens that's coming out from Nikon. It is out, it is shipping, but right now it's only going to the MPS folks, which is Nikon Professional Services. And I'm not one of those right now, so I'm having to wait like the rest of you because I'm just a normal customer with Nikon. So those lenses right now that are hitting the stores are mostly NPS. Pretty soon, I believe Nikon's shipping more, what I'm understanding. So we should have more in for us, and hopefully here in the next few weeks, I'll get a copy of mine and I'll start testing that lens. I'm really looking forward to that lens. The second lens that Nikon's released is the 70 to 180, and those are on the market right now. It's a little cheaper version. I think it's about $1,000 versus the $2,600 for the 7200. Probably once I can get my hands on one of those, I'll go ahead and test it at 7200 and tell you guys what I think about it. Is it a good budget lens? Is it workable for wildlife photography? Or is it just not good enough? And it's 70 to 180 2.8, so hopefully it'll be pretty good. The next bit of Nikon news is the new camera they released, the Nikon ZF, and I've got some notes over here about it. It looks to me more like a creator camera, because it's got the retro dials, so instead of having all your stuff in here, you have physical dials that actually control your ISO aperture and things like that. But they're notches. I don't know if you can program them. I don't know that much about the camera, but the features are pretty nice on it. It's basically the same sensor as the Z6 II from my understanding, but it does have the XP 7 processors in the Nikon Z9 and Z8, which to me that means you're going to have more ability for firmware updates on that camera because you can put more into that camera. It uses the same battery as the Z8 and the other D850s, things like that. Frames per second is 11 in mechanical and 30, but only in JPEG. Let's see, it uses SD card and a micro SD card. That's a really weird one. The body size looks really small, but it looks like a small rig is going to make a grip for it, which gives you more depth here on your right hand on there. So that's pretty nice. Again, I think it looks a little more a bit like to me to a creator camera, but there's a few more things on it. They're saying it has 8 stops of IBIS with you have the right lenses, VR in them. So I'm guessing it has 5 stops in the body, probably 3 or 4 in the lenses, maybe 4 stops in the body. It does have, in video, it does have 4K 60, but the crop mode. So again, it's that same sensor as a Z6 II. So if you're happy with the image quality and 11 frames per second, and you don't mind using physical dials to, set your ISO and aperture, because there's notches in there for each of those, might not be a bad camera. It's running about $2,000. Z6 III would have been nicer, I believe, for Nikon shooters that are shooting that, but that's what you got. It was a ZF. So that's what that camera is. Again, it's $2,000 for the body. It's $2,240 US, that is, with the 40mm f2 kit, but that's it there. So that's all the Nikon news. Sony news, the only 2 things I'm seeing right now, there is a 70 to 180 Tamron lens. This time a G2 version that's a little bit better that just came out. It's about the same price as the Nikon. It's Nikon and Tamron. They're kind of the same manufacturer, same lenses, but the Nikon one has Nikon specs and their stuff, and Tamron has their stuff, but they're pretty close to the same lens. But anyway, the second part was they released two cameras, the A7C2 and the A7CR. The CR is basically the A7R5 in a little compact body. I have a review on the A7R5, what I thought about the sensor and the blackouts and things like that. I think that camera is more of a creator and landscape guy camera. The A7C2 is basically the A7 IV in a more compact, smaller body and with different viewfinder. The viewfinder sits on the side of those cameras. I don't know how well. I have to look that up, but it really, again, doesn't look like a camera for wildlife photographers, but it could be, because I know guys that use the A6600 and things like that for wildlife photography, but it's a cheaper version of the A7 IV. So that's basically what that camera is in a compact body. So if you like the A7 IV, maybe something you want to go test out and see if the A7C2, wow, these numbers get you lost, but it may be a good camera there. So that was the news for Sony. So those two cameras and the new lens from Tamron that's coming out that is in the wildlife photography. There's other lenses that come out, but really, I think most lenses I'll cover will be like the 7200s and up, and that's really what we use for wildlife photography. Yeah, you can use a 50 and things like that for a lot of wider environment with your subject, which I do sometimes too. I've dropped out of 50 sometimes, or 1435 if I'm close enough to get more of the scene, but usually 70 is about as low as I go, and 70 to 200. So that's pretty much all the news that I can think of right now for September, things that happen in September. All right, let's get into the tips, tricks, and fixes section of this now. And today's going to be a tip or a how-to or a warning also. And that is how to carry your large lenses like this 500 f4, which won't even fit in the shot. I mean, it's so big. This guy runs about 7 pounds. The Nikon 2 to 500 is sitting here on the desk too. This guy runs in around 5 pounds. And why is that significant? Why are we talking about these lenses? So we're going to talk about how you should carry these lenses to make sure you don't tear stuff up when you're not on a tripod and it's not a backpack, when you're carrying it around your neck or carrying it, hand holding it, carrying it out in the field. And what is that? Well, what you don't want to happen, let's go ahead and just hook up this 500 lens here. And I remember which way to turn it because Nikon and Canon are backwards and I flip between the two systems all the time. So again, this is a 7 pound lens, this is a 5 pound lens. And so what you don't want to do is you don't want to be carrying it by the body. So what you won't want to be doing is you don't want your strap hooked up to these camera straps right here. You don't want them hooked up to that. You want to be carrying your camera at all times with the lens. Why is that? Well, if you're carrying this by the body, you're going to start putting stress on where the mounts are on the camera. And what will happen if you do that, and this is a cautionary tale, it happened to me on my Canon R5 and this bad boy with a 1.4 extender. So why is that? That stress? Do you think, well, these cameras should be able to handle that stress? Well, what happens in here, and this is what's left of my extender when this happened, and it wasn't because I was carrying it wrong. It's something else we'll talk about here in a second, what happened to it. But on these cameras, there is a pin right here. And actually this piece is missing. That's what's in this little bag, is all the little screws and stuff that, and the little button here that you push to release that. And what happened was this little pin right here, this little silly pin right there, got bent just a hair. And what happened on it, again, this is $350 right here, gone, toast. If I could get that pin out, which I'd send it back to Canon, but it's toast because we had to cut it off. What happened was this was sitting on this lens on the R5, connected to it for about a week and a half. So I would shoot with it most of the time because I was shooting stuff that was really far away from me all the time, as I was shooting at 700 millimeters. And what happened was this would be set back in the back seat, not in a case, and it was sitting there taking stress all the time as we hit bumps. And I had people in the back seat every once in a while, and their little legs would hit it every once in a while, so it kept putting more and more stress on that joint. And eventually that pin bent, and I could not get this off. Pushing this thing, it would not move to release the pin for the lens release. And what I had to do is I had to sit it in, and they had to cut this off. And there's just a real fine, you can't really see it right here, where they cut it off, and they tore up the rubber seal on the end of the lens right here. But this little rubber seal here, but we had another one put on it, so not a big deal. That was easy fix because you just replaced the whole plate. You can see right here, this ring on the top, you can see the screws. You just take those off and this comes off. Now, if this would have been on this side, it would have been easier to get off because they could take these screws off and get hold of it. But this one, the screws were inside, so you couldn't get to it. So we had to cut it off. And that is all due to, as I'm saying, with the stress on your camera right here at this point. And if you carry it by the body, this is heavier than this, so you're going to put stress, especially this guy, this big 700 here, or 500 with extender 700, yes. But with this 2 to 500, even at this thing, I think it's about 3 pounds or more. Do not carry it by the body. Don't even carry it like this with your hand, just like that. Carry it by the tripod foot. Don't carry it by the body because you will over time put stress on that mount. So with most big lenses, we'll look at the 500 right now. They have right here, we have little strap lock points here, or strap points on the camera lens. And with there, and I use the, let me grab one of these straps here. The straps I use are the Peak Design straps. They're really nice. And the reason I like them is they come with these little tags here. And with these little tags, you just take these, you just slip them on. They pop on that easy. They come right off. So that's how these are. And the Nikon 180 to 600 actually comes with these. And the 2 to 500, I'm going to swap these guys out. So the 2 to 500 does not have strap mounts on the lens. That's a pain in the butt. I don't like any of these bigger lenses that don't have strap mounts. So thankfully the 180 to 600 has strap mounts on it. And it's one of the things I checked out when I ordered the lens. I'm still waiting on that guy. I hope it comes in soon. So what do you do for this one? How do you overcome this when you don't have a strap lock? Because the only place you've got to put straps right now, as it looks like on this, is here. Well, there is several companies that make a strap lock that'll fit down here. And let me get everything out here. Let's get this Peak Design foot, not Peak Design. This is actually a Arca Swiss plate, sorry. Let's get this off of here. All right, get that Arca Swiss plate off of there. These straps are Peak Design. So several companies have a strap plate mounting point that will go right here in this lug nut hole. And Peak Design makes one. Let me take this off the strap. That is literally just this. It's just a little small piece. What you do is you put 2 of these Peak Design little fobs here, you put them on them, and you take this little bolt, and it literally just goes, if I can hold on to it, just literally goes into that where you would put your Arca Swiss plate. All you do is tighten it down, and make sure you tighten it down good. Don't make sure it's loose. Next thing you want to make sure is this is tightened down good. There are a few of these Nikon which actually have a mount where this foot comes off. Make sure that's tight too. Once you have that on here, you're good. From here, all you do is put your Peak Design strap on here, same way as the other one on both sides. And now you are set up to carry this from the lens, not from the body. But I really wanted to pass that along. I know it's a real short one and an easy one. It's not a real long video. But really, do not carry your big lenses, anything over 2 or 3 pounds. Do not carry them with the body, with the straps on the body. You can only do that on those smaller, shorter lenses, which I don't have one sitting around here right now. Make sure you're carrying it from the lens. When you carry it around, you carry it like this. Don't pick it up. Another thing I've noticed a lot of people do is they take this foot, if I can get it loosened up, and they run it to the top And this is a personal preference of mine. I don't do it this way. And the reason is when I pick this lens up, and the strap's in the way right now too, is when I'm picking this up, my hand is down here where the rings are. It's touching those rings. I know I've heard a lot of people will, on certain lenses, they'll hit the focus or whatever, or the throw, because this is the focus, if you have it set where it'll do the ring or the autofocus. And your hand sits right there when you pick these lenses up. This one, the big one, really does a lot. And what I know people say they don't like holding this, but to me, the best way to do it for me, and this is just me, it's the way I carry stuff. It doesn't mean it's the best way, it just means the way I do it. If I put my hand on this foot all the time, that's where I hold the bottom. I don't hold it by the lens. And my finger, index finger, is out here kind of helping sustain a little bit. And what happens there is I don't twist anything. So I've had people say, oh, the focus got off. And a lot of times, or I know when I've had my hand on this big lens, on this focus ring, sometimes it changes because it moves just a hair, it's moving the focus. But if I'm using it this way to my eye and bringing it up, one is I've got that weight of this lens here, and then I put my hand here, or I pick it up with both. But I'm distributing that weight across the lens, but I'm also not hitting this focus ring. And that's just me, but I just wanted to pass around how I use it. Maybe it'll help you try it out. I try different things. When I see people doing something different, I try it out. But those are the two bits of advice and tips I'd give you. One is do not carry that, because you'll have this where you'll be like me. This pin will eventually get bent and stuck on there, or your mount will start getting loose. If you've got some type of adapters like the F to Z or the Fringer adapter, these things can get a little loose if you're using them that way. So you don't want to put pressure on there. You'll bend the pin, your mount will get loose, or you lose your contacts, things like that, or mess up the contacts. So carry it by the handle like it's supposed to be. Make sure your foot's on there. Second bit of advice is I put my hand on the bottom of the handle. And I don't have a body on this one, but it really works well with the 500 because this is a big plate here. So again, I may put my thumb like that. I can't get around here so you can see it. So my thumb may be right there, but it usually rests in front of that ring when I put it up here, which is literally, well, I'll put it down here where you can see from the overhead. But that's where my hand sets, like that, when I'm carrying this guy. But yeah, that's my advice. That's what it is. That's the news. That's my tips. Guys, if you like the channel, subscribe, all that fun, all that YouTube stuff. And as always, get outside and go run that shutter. I'll see you on the next episode.